very much for coming to Queen's Park Arts Centre this afternoon. It's lovely to welcome everyone. I'm delighted that Chris and Freya are going to be talking and presenting this afternoon at Queen's Park. It's a real privilege, and I hope you enjoy the exhibition after their talking demo. Thank you very much.
Afternoon. Afternoon, yeah. Got a lovely day for it. Yes. And you're in here, yeah. Go ahead. What I'm going to, I was hoping to do some of my contemporary work, but I can't do it because I'm carving porcelain, and it's like, if you're watching it, it's like watching paint dry. And I use it when it's quite, rather than carving when it's soft. I carve it when it's really bone dry, and then I use sanding, and I use wet sponges to bring it down, and I use nail varnish to give different types of depths to it. So I thought I'll go and have a go at one of my figurative pieces, since I have to make it for someone, and that it all fits in. So I hope you don't mind me doing it that way rather than contemporary work. Right, so it'd be good if I don't mind questions at all. That helps me talk about everything rather than, because I get into it and I forget about, and it's not good, is it?
You were just asking how long since you were last here, because you came here before, didn't you?
I have been before, yeah. and I can't remember.
Oh, you can't remember?
No, I remember you, of course. The mask, it's the mask. Yeah. Well, I think everybody had a reset in the time that we had off, and we thought about life and what you wanted to do, and etc. etc. And I changed direction. Well, not changed direction. I wanted to do a bit more carving, and which was related to the time that was carving stone. When I was in Zimbabwe for a couple of years, I learned to carve stone, and that's why I carve the porcelain when it's bone dry rather than when it's soft. And another thing, I'm known for making quite big pots, and moving them around all the time is it can get a bit stressful. And I'm getting a bit older. And
you don't look any different.
No, thank you. So we are. So, yeah, all right. Yeah, well, yeah. Oh, this is my daughter Freya. Yeah. She's well. I'll put that there, and we'll talk about it in a minute. She's slowly taking over my studio, and she's doing very well now. If you see her on Instagram, she's all over the world these days, and getting lots of press. She's doing quite exciting things, which is nice to see. Oh, it's one of those. Right, so along my short career, I started off with modelling first of all in Hastings, and I worked with a gentleman called Tony Bennett. He doesn't sing, and you may have noticed his work. He did the Neanderthal men in the British Museum, and once I knew he did those and visited that, I really captivated his modelling, and he would do every line on every lip and every crease, and he's just fantastic. and he went to college with people like Flock and Law, who does Spitting Images, and Harry Franchetti, Jackie Poncelet. It was a well-famous group of people that finished the Royal in the 70s. I mean, all of them have done really well in what they've done. They're quite an amazing crew. So I started off with him in Hastings, and then I was doing quite a lot of modelling and sculpture works. And while I was in an exhibition design course, and then I dropped the course towards the end, built up a portfolio of figurative stuff, and then moved on to, I got invited actually to go to Glasgow School of Art, went to Glasgow School of Art, and then I learned to throw, and then I started to combine the two pieces, the throwing and the figurative work. So this is one that's metamorphosed, moved on to I call this the fisherwoman. Anyway, so which actually originally comes from a flower called an amaryllis. So an amaryllis is a bulb, which somebody once told me that you didn't have to put water with it or anything like that. You just put it in the pot, and it just lives off its bulb, and it just grows and it just blossoms for once. And this is what I've done for this young girl. So the face from the young girl comes from a girl called Tracy, who came to my workshop, and she wanted me to make some dolls for her, and she wanted to start a doll line, and in exchange I asked if I could model her face. And that was our exchange. And ever since that, it's just been different versions of this. And it's been quite successful in my... So this is the kind of a base I prepared earlier. And I'll just kind of clean up the bottom. All the work I do now is stoneware. For the first, say I've been doing it for about 40 years. The first 30 years I always had a gas reduction kiln, and then once I got my larger studio, and I was still teaching at colleges, I found that the mixtures of glazes I could put together would get a reduction feel to it. So so once I moved to a larger workshop, I didn't put up a reduction kiln. I went all electric, which is great because you don't have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, turn it on, and sit there all day and put it in reduction and then stay there till 10 o'clock at night. That's if it doesn't stall, because gas kilns can stall sometimes depending how you pack them. Really? Yes, sir.
Do you throw that thick at the bottom on purpose for the height?
Um,
Because you take off quite a bit of material.
yeah, I did it in a hurry for you see. it was just, last night, just, yeah. I don't really mind if things are thick or thin. You just sit there an extra minute, 2 minutes to do it, I get upset when people come round to your house and they lift it up and they go, oh. And you go, yeah? Yeah, how much is it supposed to weigh then? They go, yeah, but this is, you go, yeah. And I find that at the end of the day, it's what the object looks like. What you imbue into the piece and what people get off it. Clay's been our friend ever since time, that's how we tell our history and our social activities all the way through the ages.
So is that because you make mostly non-functional pieces? Because I'm thinking like if you making say a mug, you are going to be picking it up a lot.
Well, that's slightly different, isn't it?
Yes, that's what I was saying. So you make more sculptural pieces that do sit in a place to look at.
Well, some of the semi-sculpture I do go into the garden.
Yes.
So it needs to be solid enough so it lasts for frost, etc., etc. Although I use stoneware all the time.
Yes.
So a mug, I've done production throwing. So mugs always are thin.
Yeah.
So I don't really have to bother about that. So, what was your question?
I was intrigued.
Yeah. No, I don't. If you're making things semi-sculptural, they don't have to be lifted up every time.
Yes.
Okay. Plus, you want to give people their money's worth. That's what I say here. And if quite a lot of mine are kind of quirky. Like you may see through there a pot with 3 women's heads and then another pot balanced on the top. People come up to you and they'll pick it up and it'll fall off. So if it falls off, you don't want it to break. So you make things use for purpose for use. Yeah. Okay.
Could I ask, you said that you spent time in Zimbabwe and that you had sort of done stone carving.
Yeah.
You were there. Was there other things that inspired you or that have fed into your work from your time in Zimbabwe? Working with artists and craftspeople there?
Because when I came from, it was just after art school I went there, because I went to Glasgow, and usually you have to have, the academic way is that you have to have drawings and preparation, and it makes things easier. So that when I was working there in the exhibition department, I found that that the people that looked after the exhibition halls, the guys with the suits. What are they called? Stewards, yeah, the stewards of the place. At the weekend, they used to go behind the gallery, and this is this place called the BAT Workshop, British American Tobacco, who sponsored this workshop. And it was first created by a guy called McEwen, who was to be the first director of the National Gallery of Zimbabwe. Well, it used to be Rhodesia. And if anybody knows anything about Zimbabwe carving, it's very spiritual. And he tried to create a culture of how do I say it? It's not like, say, like the Inuit or Eskimo art. This was all created for commercial. So Zimbabwe's carving, although it's really advanced, it's created from nothing. Okay. Frank McEwen, that's his name, Frank McEwen. Okay. And what inspired me was that one day the guy said, "Oh, why don't you come and do some carving since you're an artist?" And I said, "All right." So I turned up on the Saturday, and I went along to the workshop. And a guy chucks over one of his hammers, and he says, "Here, I can use one of mine." And I says, "Where do I start?" He says, "Well, go and bring the head out. There's a load of red stone and some soapstone over there. Bring it over, and there's a head there." So I went across and looked for this head for about 15 minutes, and I couldn't find the head. And he says, and I came back, I says, "Well, I'm sorry, I can't find it. What colour stone is it?" He says, "It doesn't matter what kind of stone it is." He says, "You've got to actually do something to bring out the head." So I said, "All right, you got me." Yeah. And they said, "Just bring out the head that's in the stone." So I brought over a stone, and I started carving the stone, and just went with the flow rather than having preconceived ideas of what it is. And I do quite a lot of that with the porcelain work now. And there's a place in Zimbabwe called Hepworth, and they have balancing stones. And it's a bit like just where it's the sand and the rain has eroded underneath the stones. It's just got balancing stones. It's on the coins. It's just really high stone, just balancing. And I use it in quite a lot of my ideas. Just having pieces that move off and put on and go through, and detachable rather than a piece all in one. So this is a lid I threw earlier, and this is a neck that I'm just making here. So when I came back, I found that if I was to throw something like that was quite normal, just to put that in a show, put some nice colours on it, put tamuku on it and have something running down maybe. I found that I would just look at it and I think, well, that's a blank, that hasn't got anything. So then I started to really decorate my pots with faces, trying to give it personality rather than just straight pots. Okay. So I'm going to stick a neck on top of the lid. It's like vases with necks. I don't mind actually using two, although I can throw pots with necks on it. My students, I say just do it in two parts. It's what actually is at the end, not how you make it. Because most people, when they're working away at their clay work, they're in it anyway. You know, you got kind of like you get into a zone. Am I right?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Back me up.
I'll ask a question. So do you always need to put a coil around between the neck and the lid?
No. Usually I just I throw it like that. But since I threw it in a hurry, there's I wasn't sure on the width of the lid because the lid was upside down. So I just put a coil there, and I could take it out later anyway. If it's too heavy there, I could just flip it upside down and just core it out, just like I did the base of this.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
So you said when you went to in Scotland, you were drawing designs for everything before you created them.
Yeah.
Now you've been doing it so long, and after your Zimbabwe experience,
Yeah.
do you need to do drawings anymore? It's just in your head, and then you can just.
If it's for other people, If it's commissions, you need to show them something.
Yeah.
But if it's for me, these days I just kind of just go into it really, because I teach quite a lot at my workshop. So I teach slab building, coil building, throwing, slip casting. We do it all there. So when the idea is there, the final idea, if you're going that way, I just, as I'm going through it, I just pick the best way to actually execute the technique. And I just use any technique to put it together. And that's one of the things I found as well, teaching for so long, because if you're kind of like a normal potter, you have an idea and you kind of develop it over the years. But if you do a lot of teaching, like some of you, you'll find that you have an idea and you have to think about how would you execute the idea, or if you're going to move on, what you're going to. If you go in for a kind of free Sunday morning by yourself, what you're going to do? Are you going to do throwing, or are you going to do hand building, or are you going to do slab building? Because all of them comes just as easy as anything else. So you end up finding, if you have a final idea, just find the technique to get you to that end quick. If you know what I mean. This is a mould I pressed out yesterday.
So it was pressed, not slip cast.
No.
So the usual question, Chris, what body are you using?
This is VG9.
Right.
Does that help? It's from Valentine's clay.
Right.
And it's got 10% sand, so you can build without warping and within reason. Yeah, yeah. And but most of my students use a thing called B17C, Valentine's again. They've quite cornered the market actually.
Is this Tracy you're beheading then?
Yeah. That's taking her off at the neck.
Must be funny for her to have all these likenesses cropping up.
She doesn't actually. Well, she saw the first one, but she didn't know it ended up to be quite successful for me. And the other people I use for models as well.
How did her dolls range get on?
It didn't work. It wasn't to do with me. It was just the marketplace, young black girl trying out to get, there's no black dolls, and I said fair enough, and I, was looking for it. I think it would have worked. It did work. I think she had some small sort of soirees, and she'd invite people and they all bought dolls and stuff like that. And then it got a bit bigger, and then I think it was marketing. I think if she was doing it now, with an event of Instagram, etc., I think she would do fine. I think she would really do fine, because Instagram gives you an immediate worldwide market.
Have you got a male equivalent of Tracy?
You've got a couple. You've got a couple.
I've got men heads. Yeah.
In a similar vein.
A similar vein? No. What do you mean? Similar vein.
Well, your style of pottery with the heads that you do. You don't do a male version.
No. Well, I have done, I have done, but I smaller one. But
You've got a very large Toby, the flint head.
yeah,
large
yeah,
one.
that's true. Yeah, yeah.
Well, she,
But I like ladies. Just me. I think.
But not everybody does, you see. You're
I know.
a
I
limited
know.
market.
Yeah, yeah.
well, will she have any jewellery on their neck?
This one.
Yes.
Sometimes.
What sort of colour?
Just porcelain beads.
Maybe African.
Well, they're like cowrie shells.
Okay.
You know the cowrie shells? Yeah. Just patch her up a bit. It's funny that, but even if you talk to, I spoke to women artists over the years, and they like women's bodies more than men's because the curves are a bit more subtler and there's more movement. Yeah. I'll try and get out of that one. Okay, just patching this up a bit.
Or Tracy.
Yeah, we did get on fine. Okay. Now the reason I'm doing this is because I need to stick my fingers down her throat. Get that a bit smaller. I'll show you. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just take a brush, one of my favourite tools, down there and just inside there. And we stick her on there like that. Okay, that. Now we make some little sausages. And then we wet the sausages, just with a toothbrush again to join, stick it on a stick, like that. And we go down through the top here, and we stick the two together. So we've got strips going across inside for strengthener. You with me? Yeah, good. So if I put about 3 of those in there. I learnt that because I used to quite embellish them with hairdressers and things, and the hairdress would be too heavy, and when it comes out the kiln, it's a bit like that. Bit of an attitude, you know. So I learnt my lesson, and I developed their own little techniques for solving these problems. Well, that's the great thing about ceramics is that most good ideas actually come from a glaze that's, you know, that has run a bit onto another glaze, and you go, oh, that's great, you know. That's made something else I wouldn't have thought of. These wheels are great, aren't they? These are Mervyn Fitzwilliam wheels. Does anybody know about him? Yeah. He's a great guy. He was a great guy. And he passed away a few years ago. And he developed these wheels in his shed in Hemel Hempstead. And he used to be an aircraft pilot when he was younger. And when he came out, he did a bit of pottery. He did a bit of pottery himself, and he decided to design these wheels. And I got 5 of them. And they were voted the best in Europe a few years back.
From what point of view? From what point of view are they the best?
They're just great to sit on and work on, and nice bit of furniture, really good control, nice sitting position.
I went to see Mick Hasson when he lived in Presswood,
Uh-huh.
not far from us, and he told me to get a Fitzwilliam wheel, that they were the Rolls Royces, and I got one in about, I think it was 1976.
Uh-huh.
And it's still going.
It's still going. They're great, aren't they? Yeah. Well, if Mike Casson, yeah. Well, there you go. And he was one of the best throwers.
Yeah, nicest man.
Yeah.
No, he lived in Prestwick.
He did, because he taught at Harrow at the Studio Potters course. That's what he lived in Harrow.
Okay.
And then when he finished there, he moved to Wales.
Uh-huh. I only meet him at. I only used to meet him at shows. I never got a chance to go to his workshop. Yeah. But I went to Mervyn's workshop. He was.
Right, yeah.
He was. Yeah. Try buy one of them now, second hand. There's one on eBay for 3,700. Oh yeah, they're really. Yeah, some people really appreciate them. So if you've got one out in the shed, you'll get a.
You've got them insured in.
Yeah, insure it. Yeah. Right, so I'm just putting a coil around her neck, just to make it nice and solid. Now that's amazing creation, isn't it? What would we do without these now? They're just, you can cut them to make fits, and they're credit. Sorry?
They're going to be like gold soon because now everybody's using their phone.
I know. Yeah, they're just wonderful. Changed my life. Right, get that on there.
Listen, is the angle of the head a conscious decision that you made when you made the mould? Is it sort of, she's looking up, isn't she?
Actually, the mould, she's looking straight, but here she's looking up.
Yeah. So do you make
It's just to
a
give her a
conscious
lift.
decision?
Yeah. Just to make her look a bit more proud, dignified, and all the rest of it. Just to. Sometimes I give them attitude, or what the piece needs. It's a slight tilt of the head. Does everything. You don't really need to do too much with it. You can tell that somebody's been cheeky, can't you? Right. Just gonna roughen this up a bit, so I can.
Is that a pin tool you're using? Can't see it from there.
Knife.
Oh, it's nice. Sorry, I
Yeah.
shouldn't see it.
Is it? Right. Now you can use anything for anything, long as it works. I went the first pottery. Pottery wheel, small wheel that I bought. This gentleman's mum had passed away, and she was in Hemel Hempstead, and he rang me up. He says, "Come and look at my garage and see if you wanted any of these things." And there was a nice little Brent wheel that I picked up from there, and a little small chromaty kiln. And all the rest of her tools were from her kitchen. All the tools from the kitchen. And her stuff was lovely. And then I realised that it's not the tools you buy, expensive tools like the mud tools you buy or whatever it is. No salesmen here, are they? No. It's how it fits your hand. If a fish fork fits your hand, and it works, and it works. I'm just going to put a collar on her, which helps keep the neck on. Reinforces it, let's say. Right. So in this piece, you can see that it doesn't matter whether it's rolling out coils or using molds, throwing, or you just use a technique that once you have a grasp, a beginning grasp of most of the techniques, you can actually move from one to the other, which will give you a better you know what I mean. It gives you, yeah, it makes it easy for you. Yeah.
Chris, would you normally do all of this on the wheel, not move to a banding wheel?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one good thing about these wheels. You can sit there all day.
Yeah.
And and your feet are still on the ground. And it's not as low as the new Shimpos where you're up under the, you know. I mean, they're great for if you've got them in your house. You can just shove them under the table or kitchen table or in the shed or whatever it is. But yeah, most of it I would do on the wheel because I will swap, because you've got a turntable there already. And then if you're, so for instance, I'm going to do a line around there. In fact, I could do that now, couldn't I? Yeah.
I've got a question.
Yes, please.
So when you're creating your pieces, do you prefer to sort of do you prefer to work in silence, so you've got sort of full concentration, or do you like to listen to music or the radio or something, or is that too distracting?
I'm really bad. I have a video on.
He'll actually watch a whole film
Yeah, I watch a movie.
and probably have the radio on at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah. If there's a good story on the radio, fair enough. Well, I like watching. I'm going through. What's that one I'm going through now? That.
The one, the
Not Lord
after
of the
death,
Rings.
life after death.
Yeah.
Life after death.
Tractors.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings, anything like that. You know. I like a bit of sci-fi. I really like sci-fi.
It doesn't come out in your pots.
No.
It
Well,
started to.
It started to.
Definitely have.
I used to do quite a lot of sci-fi actually. Quirky things, but sometimes, to live, you have to give people what they want. A pot. Well, you give people what they want because, you need to live. And it is pottery, and people always need bowls and... I like artists like H.R. Geiger. Anybody know H.R. Geiger? Giger, the guy who invented Alien. Yeah, and he's got books like Mechanorma and stuff like that. And I find his transformation, like you would see, say, a back of a dustbin truck or something like that. And you can and he'll turn it into something absolutely beautiful or something really, really weird. And he's the guy that invented the Alien and the alien ships and stuff like that.
Have you thought about returning to the sci-fi now that Instagram's a thing and you can find a wide audience? Yeah. Now I've got more space and time, and my kids are growing up and taking over the workshop, and it's I find especially through COVID, I found that it was time to change, and to do more things that it's not that I didn't like what I was doing before, but I was just doing I was just following not the trend, Like things to sell.
things to sell, and putting my twist on it. Say they were planters, I would add things to them like trees or faces and stuff like that, and just put my twist on it. But now I feel slightly different about all of that.
Well, your perspective changes all the time, and it comes through in your work. And I suppose maybe how you used to feel about some subjects, you feel differently now, and you're more courageous in maybe talking about it now. Some of the things.
Yeah, it's all changed. Yeah. So. I mean, like through the other side, I've got a horse. There's a horse's head,
and it's got a bowl on the back of it about that size, and I just thought it works for me, and I feel quite happy about it, and it hasn't got a horse's body or anything like that, and it's quite quirky, and I'm not so frightened of actually doing stuff that people don't like, or not people don't like, that people.
That satisfies you. It's
Yeah.
work that satisfies you opposed to making it for anybody else. Yeah.
Yeah. In my workshop now, we've got about, it's about 10 people that are semi-professional, and quite a lot of them started from scratch. And it's really good to see, it's really good to share my skills and see people doing well with it. You know, they're all part of the Flow Gallery or the Marsdens or whatever it is. They're all doing really well. There we go.
And whoever thought pottery would be on the television, apart from the screensaver one?
Sorry?
Whoever thought pottery would be, top watching on the television?
Pottery photo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, who would have thought that? It's rather lovely.
Yeah. It's exploded in London. Really, really exploded. I would say there's about 1,000 people that are practicing ceramics in London now. And before there was, 100, 150. I wouldn't say 1,000, I would say more than that. I would say we're near 2,000.
There's so many studios
Yeah.
popping up. At
There's
left, right and centre.
the kiln rooms, and there's the turntables, is it
Turning
called?
Earth.
Turning Earth. There's myself, there's Cosmin, there's loads.
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 It was due a renaissance though, because it had kind of fallen out of fashion a bit, and it wasn't. I feel like this has been a long time coming.
Yeah, it is.
I agree
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
because
it's such a tactile medium. I've
Yeah.
always loved clay since I was little, but I'd always be doing something. I'd just be realising the people I was doing with were older and older, and there weren't that many younger people coming in because it just wasn't taught in schools anymore.
That's right.
Except for some
They just
schools.
throw brand new kilns out, and yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Pardon?
Half this equipment.
Yeah. It's amazing how it's all it's all changed.
My kiln is from City Lit, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Second hand. All of our stuff seems to be second hand. But it works fine. It's great.
So is social media the thing that is also driving it as something that is
Makes it more accessible.
so you can get to people, you can get to a market more easily.
It's a mainstream platform. It opens it out and lightens it up. Makes it easier.
Yeah, like Freya, she was in Pottery Throwdown, the second series, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it done her wonders.
Apparently with my toilet. Did anyone see? Oh my god.
Well, that's all right.
I can't believe it. It was amazing.
But as you were saying, it's got its renaissance, but socially things had changed as well. It's like, I was speaking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about how when you used to get married,
So, well, people don't get, not as many people get married these days, but when you got married, they used to, you know, you'd end up with 1 or 2 dinner sets. And a dinner set was 130 pieces, you know, and everybody got one of those, you know. The Americans used to come over and they used to buy all of the Worcesters and the Spodes and collect it. They stopped doing it because their ceramics went up and they followed their own. Yeah, quite a lot of the things had changed. Too big.
Only recently your hands have gone off the front of this building. It was on a banner.
Oh, were
when
they?
You came the first time.
Okay. Is that what I was doing, making hands?
No, you were throwing pots then.
Oh, okay.
Throwing a big pot. And there was a picture of your hands, and I don't know whether I can't remember whether it got your head and the rest of you, but I recognise you.
Oh, you reckon with the hat? Usually a hat.
Yeah, we've got the real thing now, but yeah, must have been out there for a long while.
How are we doing for time?
I'm absolutely fine. You've got loads of time.
Good. And another thing that's changed my view of techniques was mould making. When I had a studio up in Glasgow, I used to make stuff, and you'd have all the time in the world. And each face or each kind of figure I'd model separately to the occasion, whether it was a commission or it was just something I was doing myself. And then when I came down to London, I used to make things, and if something went wrong, you just didn't have time to remake it. So using moulds and and putting out different versions of different things within moulds helped me an awful lot to actually continue my practice. Because I always thought that moulds was, I thought it was cheating.
weekend throwing courses in London?
Freya does.
I'm doing one Saturday. Yeah.
Is it beginners or throwing larger?
Well, we take on a couple of beginners every month or so. That's just so that we can actually give them the quality.
So it's an
attention.
ongoing week by week course,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
like a 1 day.
You can't go this Saturday, Patrick.
No, you can't.
Oh, I'm giving it a course. He's on it.
I don't work at weekends anymore. Because Freya takes over my studio at weekends and evenings. So I do 10 till 5 every day, except for Fridays, where Fridays I can get to do my own work, and which is good. It gives me a break. Because you know when you're running your own business, you're in there every day, all day. And especially when you've got so many, left college, you know, if you're in college you can play with the equipment. You know, when it's yours, the buck ends with you. And I was lucky to get such a good education in Glasgow that I've been able to, you know, put my own elements in my own kilns, make the glazes, and do practically everything.
Can I ask what you do in your downtime to relax when you're not doing pottery?
What's that? What's downtime?
You said that you don't work at weekends, so what would you do to relax and unwind? And
Oh, I just take a long walk, have something to eat, a beer, and watch a movie. Yeah, no more than that, really.
What
No.
kind of food?
What kind of food? What kind of food?
Are you offering me?
Yeah, right across. I have no any food that's cooked well. Can be the matter whether it's Turkish, Chinese, English. You know, well, English now. English favourite meal is curry. What's it called? Chicken pasa is the British national dish, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's not roast beef and 2 veg. Anyway, in Indian curry is an English thing. Anyway, it was invented in Birmingham.
I was going to ask, you sort of said your training sort of set you up for a career as a ceramicist. I was just asking Freya, have you gone to an art college, or because I think a lot of the courses have closed.
Yeah, and a lot of them have opened. There's a lot of new things. But no, I did do a fine art degree at Chelsea, so I've done art all the way through my education. I kind of, I did. Yeah, from art GCSE, I then went to the Brit School and did a visual art and design course, and that was a BTEC. So all of my A levels were in art. So I was practicing it left, right, and centre, just going through a rainbow of techniques and trying everything out, and then I went and went to university. And I suppose at university I found that I connected with clay really quite naturally, but it was somewhat to my surprise, because I didn't have it in my mind that was something that I wanted to do, especially when your parents do something. I mean, we all want, you know, when your parents do something, you don't want to do it because perhaps you see the stress you feed off, you know, you see the other side of it. But it's not like that now at all. But at that age, I was probably in university. I was inspired to learn all the techniques, and I was lucky enough to be able to spend time observing my dad in the studio. So it's not so much that he would, you know, give me a lesson every day like as he would to a student. It's just that I could learn through watching as you are. And when I got things wrong, I would really know about it. You know? So, so I learnt gradually, and then after university, I was just working in a bar, and I thought, you know what, I was kind of put off the art world because I kind of fell out of love. In fact, university, the best thing that it kind of taught me, I understood the art industry, and it seemed, at my perception in my early 20s, it seemed to be all about money, so it kind of put me off, and I was a bit disheartened, and so I found my way back through being creative again with clay, and then there wasn't anything better for me, and I just followed what I really enjoyed, and I said, Dad, can I help you out for a bit? A bit turned.
She's still here.
I know. Sorry. He said, well, if you want to do it properly, you better learn how to throw, because it wasn't something that throwing was fine, but I wasn't like drawn to it like a lot of people are. I found it a little bit boring, actually, just looking at it. But once you get into throwing, it's the opposite. It's amazing. It's meditative. It's giving you a lot of qualities. So I learned a whole syllabus of throwing, everything, and then I could teach it. And I started to teach kids. And you know, when you're with kids, you kind of learn inside out, upside down, because they give you all the mistakes. So, and then everything just snowballed when I started teaching.
And do you enjoy the teaching side as much as you do the...
Very much so. Very much so. They're two of the same. It's like in and out, up and down. So you don't want to just completely be. I would just be in my studio on my own, all like quite solitary, which I do need, but I also need the opposite. I suppose every character has.
And children often want to do such mad things.
Yeah. They bring so much. They just say, "I want to build a ship." Okay, all right. Let's do it on the. You know, you can be really creative, even if we don't fire everything. It's just the fun, and it just keeps you on your toes as an artist as well. Yeah.
Do you ever use air dry clay with them then? You don't fire?
I do if I'm out of the studio. But if I'm in my studio, I just use the clay that I have. But on Thursday night, I used an air dry clay called Sculpt.
Yeah.
That's a fairly new one that's come out over lockdown, and it's really good.
Can you fire it?
Really good. And you can fire it to stoneware. I think it's the best air dry clay.
Yeah. Okay.
The best learning you can do is teaching, because you spend all the time correcting everybody's work, because you're just correcting. So when you come down to your own work, you're I'm not doing it like that. and you know, even if you're teaching just coil building or just a bit of slab building, you learn so much by other people's mistakes, because you've got to get it right. Yeah, and it really lifts your skill level. Yeah.
Freya.
Sorry, Freya. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Sorry, Freya, can I ask you a question? Have you had any kids come through your hands, as it were, who are really gifted, and you see that raw talent from
100%, all the time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like I barely have to say anything to them. It's silence. I just sit there and just in the zone with them and just guide them to their they just blossom. It's really beautiful to see. Yeah, I've got this young girl called Ellie at the moment, and I remember when I first met her, she said, she's quite cheeky. She said, I had a really busy kids class on the weekend, and she said to the kid next to her, "Does the teacher ever help you?" And I was like, oh my God, this kid needs to. I was like, yeah, I will come round to you in a minute. But she does. Every day she's in my session, I was like, Ellie, would you like some help? No, I'm fine, thank you. She doesn't need any help, but she's very aware. You have some kids that just learn very differently, and I don't even know how to teach them, but you and the student learn together how to build the best out of what we've got. It's she doesn't need any help. She just does it naturally. Kids, I suppose, do pick up Well, no, I wouldn't say that generally. Some kids find it very, very difficult, as would adults, and then you have some kids that will just soak it up like a sponge. Yeah.
I wonder whether, is there any sort of formal training for youngsters who show promise, and then maybe they get it spoiled by that, idea of this is how, well, that's what you have been doing, but this is how you ought to do it. Have you ever seen anyone sort of spoiled through that routine? If you understand what I'm trying to say?
Through rigidity, through structure and discipline.
Yeah.
No, because I'm probably very the opposite.
Yeah.
So for some parents that want their kids to have structure and stuff, I probably started off a bit more like that, kind of quite tough on myself as a teacher as well. Their routine, but I don't do it like that. I'm like, it's not school. No, I'm here to enable, exactly. Yeah. And I really cater to a full spectrum of learning. Because I'm not typically an atypical learner as well. I'm very dyslexic and stuff. So I think, yes, I'm very open to different learning styles and, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm just...
We finished it. Sorry, Dad.
It's fine. It's all good. It's your turn next.
No.
Yeah. We were talking about taking photos the other day, and people were saying, "Oh, that's such a beautiful pot, and it must be really difficult for the person in the book, to get it like that." I says, "But you don't know how many pots that they've done just to get that one picture in the magazine, and you don't know what the other side of the pot looks like." Because I've had some stuck to the shelf, and but the other side looks really lovely. That goes straight into the magazine. Yeah. So that comes down to what I'm doing here is that you've got the frontal look of the piece, but it's always nice if you're doing something which is like drawing, it's good to have lines. I know this is really basic, but just lines that take your eye all around to the back of the pot, because pots are round, and it should be taken all the way around, whatever you're doing, whatever the shape is, sort of. Yeah. I'll just finish off there.
But I would like to add, I think learning ceramics, it's a balance of discipline and creativity. If you want to learn something, get to an end, if you want to learn how to throw a moon jar, for example, you've got to practice and go through the basic steps. Yeah. Definitely, and it's a practice thing, and lots of repetition does it, I think, if you would agree. Yeah, but it's always a balance between discipline and just letting yourself go. Would you agree, Dad?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Every time. Yeah, like centering. It's like learning an instrument. It's like learning the scales. You center, make a cylinder, going up and down the scales. And once you've got that, you can expand on it. It's the same with music. It's like when you're throwing. I always used to say to some of my students, like, when you're throwing and it's not going well, just hum your favourite tune. And while you're humming, if it's your favourite tune, it should actually go into the pot. And I see your fingers as like a record needle, and it just puts the vibe into the. But I do. It works for me. I just kind of hum what I like, and then it'll come out. Right, I need to do one more.
Is there such a thing as copyright on pots? Because I know I own a picture and I haven't got the copyright of it.
Of what?
My picture. I don't own the copyright of my picture.
There is copyright on pots, though. There is.
No, I'm just saying, is there copyright on pots?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was working for a lady called, when I first came to London, called Kate Byrne. And this is when the Chelsea craft used to be in the Chelsea Town Hall. Yeah. And we used to make loads of money. And in those days. And she used to make these mugs, and she used to giant pineapples, giant star fruit, really brightly coloured stuff. And then one day, one of her friends came up to her and said, I saw your stuff in, not Woolworths, Winter, not Woolworths, no, the one, Winter Skills, I think it's American. Not Walmart, it's another, I can't remember what it was. But anyway, we went to the shop and we had a look, and they were the same. And got a solicitor, took them to court. She got £5,000 out of it, and they had to take them off the shelves. Yeah, so you can get, yeah, you can get your trademark, not just your trademark, but your style, patented. But you don't have to patent it. You just need to prove that somebody copied you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that. And that's another thing about Instagram. Although it's done very well for Freya and other folk, and they use it in the right way, there's the thing that bugs me about it is that each person, when they go to their college or they go to their school, or you have your library, don't you? And you research your library, and you've only got a limited amount of books that the teacher has put in there. And each place has got their library, and they've got their 5 glazes, and they've got their etc. But I'm a bit worried about this kind of pluralism that's actually gone into the Instagram and the Etsy era, that everybody's got the same library. Do you know? And now you're finding everybody's. You go to a show and you go, oh, that was on that, and that was on that. Yeah. And you're finding that all the ideas are becoming homogenized. Yeah. And I think that's it's a danger. So when I speak to my students, when we talk about stuff, I says, if you're going to put something on your pot, put something out of your own past. Find something from your own past that's unique to yourself.
Do you date your pots, Chris?
Date them?
Do you date them? Yeah. Do you actually stamp them?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes.
One of the ways to prove, as you said, you can only prove that someone's copied you if you've got a starting point.
Yeah. I don't really care about that, really. Okay. For myself, yeah. I don't care, because I keep on changing my ideas, and like I was saying earlier on, I don't really. I do sign them, I do stamp them, but the date I don't always remember to do. Yeah, because I used to get in trouble for not signing them. People say, but it's not signed. That's half the price, and I'm going. Oh, yeah, I'm going. Fair enough. I understand. If you're going to spend that money on it, you should sign. Right, so there she is. Right, the fisherwoman. She's got a little fish on the back there, coming down, and I think I'll put another little fish on there. And it's a nice thing to use to store your cotton buds or something like that. Yeah. Good.
How big are your cotton buds? Actually, I have to go out.
I'll speak to you outside. I'm going to answer for that, mate. Just a little fish on there.
Do you think the homogenisation of ideas is partly because more people are doing it? When there are less people doing it, there are less. I don't know. I just maybe think about that now.
And also, when people are learning, they copy.
If there's only a few books,
Yeah.
like the internet is I mean let's go back to just Instagram is a book, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and people are. I mean, my students come in and goes, I saw this, and how do I get that colour? Yeah. Oh yeah. Is this in reduction or is this such and such? You know, this pot has got 3 legs like you. You know what I mean? And it's so it's all. It's it kind of just worries me. You know what I mean? The ceramics have been doing so well in the last few years. Yeah, I'd hate for it all to kind of gel and everybody doing the same thing.
But then it just means if someone does something different, they'll stand out and then they'll get the.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I tell you what. When I first got to London, right, I was always still doing quirky things, right? But there used to be lots of like with Cape Burn and say like the Camden Pottery, right? They used to have lots of bright colours, lots of earthenware, and such and such and such, right? A couple of years later, right, Edmund de Waal came along. I like him as a person. Never read his books, but he was a bit of a pioneer, right? So he made these tall, solid. Do you know his work? Yeah. Yeah, tall. Sometimes really quite beautiful porcelain vases or objects. Okay, and then he would make 100 of them, and he put them in a box, sell them for 20 grand, 50 grand, as he does, right? And because of him, there was a whole era of students that wouldn't touch colour.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? How it changed, and I found that it put ceramics back a bit. Yeah. And I'm not saying it was his fault, because I'm proud of what he's done, and I take my hat off to him. But because he was doing so well and he's got so many copiers, it kind of took the guts out of ceramics for a while. Yeah, for about 5-8 years or something like that. And that's what I equate that as happening to Instagram. All right. Yeah. Rather than, you know, for people to find something different, they would actually go to South America and see the Hopi Indians, or go to China and visit the things and stuff like that. But now it's all there. Yeah. And then when the money makers are rising to the top, all of theirs get copied, and then it waters down people's. You get what I mean? Yeah. I think it's a good thing that ceramics is, you know, more power to my pocket. But there is a danger. I find that the new technical age is kind of bringing on us. Yeah. Very challenging. Yeah. Because things are coming from a computer rather than people's soul.
Well, computers are going to have souls probably one day. It's true, in the future. Like really
but then you've got things like music, like techno, which is kind of machine soul, you know. So it's.
Yeah.
I think I'm a computer programmer, so I have more to say about that than we have time for now.
Yeah, but then again, you're here because of ceramics, aren't you? Yeah. It's like half the people that took time off in the COVID times, they're going to ceramics because it's the other end of them. Yeah.
I've done ceramics since I was tiny. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
So but here and there, you know, come and go.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, because computers are made by human beings, they have the stamp of a human being on them. That's all. Anyway, just now.
Yeah. It's all right. We can talk about this later. I like stuff like that. Yeah, I'm a bit sci-fi here. Yeah. Okay, so we have a break, or are we all right? Right. What time
Break.
is it?
Yep. Everyone have a break.
And then Freya will do a small demonstration afterwards.
Are you ready for me? Yes. I thought I would do some throwing, seeing as he's done all the carving and assembling. Is that cool? Yes. I can throw anything in particular. Do you want to have a pick or should I pick? Anything in particular you want to see? You just want to see a moon jar? Fine, yeah, this? Okay. I'll do a little one. I've just got a little bit of clay. If you're doing something like a moon jar, it's always good to knead the clay quite well and use hard clay. Well, not hard. You've got to feel the texture of the clay suited to how strong your hands and stuff are. But if it's too soft, it will collapse on you a lot easier. So, actually, with the moon jar, because you're going out and in, you do need the strength in the clay.
So you throw it in one rather than two halves?
Yeah, I throw it in one. Well, it depends how big you're doing. So with this amount of clay, this is that's about 4 or 5 pounds, maybe that here. But the clay I bought is really soft because I was going to do some other things. But we'll see how we get on. So, and please do just shout out any questions. I'll just talk my way through it, okay? So, on we go.
Is that same clay as Dad used?
This is actually from my studio. So I've got a studio just below him, and that I was given maybe like 4 years ago. And I end up using kind of sort of like the scraps of all the students, to be honest. So it's all stoneware clay, but I've got, and it is mostly from Valentine's, but I just mix some of the dark and the light together. But it is essentially it's very similar to what he's used. This is just a slightly darker body.
So does it have any grit in it then as well?
Yeah, it has. It's got really fine. It's got like bentonite in it and grog. So I've mixed some really fine white stonewares as well as crank. It's random. At the moment, it's random. Sometimes I'll order in special clays depending on a project, but most of the time I'm using some sort of stoneware. Right. There we go. So, I mean, if it's any bigger than this, I'll spend a couple of minutes just pushing it in the middle, just tap centering it round like that, just really slowly. You can actually centre the whole thing just by pushing it and tapping it. To be honest, it takes a bit longer, but you want to set yourself up for centering. So making the lump of clay a ball shape or a cone shape is going to help you, and putting it in the middle of the wheel as well is always going to help you. Doesn't it? Otherwise you just fight it for the next 10 minutes. I'm going to cone up a little bit. It's a bit like combing the knots out of your hair. That's how I explain it. Because in the same way you knead and you get the rhythm, all the folds of the clay in the same direction. Yep. So when you're coning it, it's like kneading but on the wheel. So the twist is up, maybe. And then when you push that cone down, it's easier to guide into the middle. Do you find? Does that make sense? Yeah. You understand my words? Are you a teacher? Do you do pottery? Yeah, students will do that to you, I can see. Okay. There are lots of ways to send. There's so many techniques of doing this. I'm left-handed, but I think I ignored that for a really long time. I was just learning it right-handed, mostly because of most of these wheels spin this way, the ones that we use, and most of the people that I come into contact with are right-handed, so I just learnt right-handed, and then I can teach it both ways if need be. So,
Which way do you prefer to throw and get shot?
right-handed.
My understanding is it's not so much the handedness, it's more the hemisphere you come from. So east throw clockwise, west throw anti-clockwise. Is my understanding. So Japan and China.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, absolutely. It's what you're used to. I mean, like all the everything's kind of suited to right hand. It's what I'm used to more so. Right, we'll just get on with it. Make a hole. Go all the way to the bottom. Maybe leave about 1 centimetre of clay or so, 1.5 centimetres. Depends how thick your foot wants to be. You can plan ahead. I just think, right, how is this going to be? Is it going to have a deep foot, or is it going to be a wide bottom or a very narrow one? Because you need to know that for when you're opening it up at this stage. So you look at the inside, and I'm just checking it's nice and flat on the inside, and I've left it quite narrow, so the opening there means it will be a little bit thick now at the base as I'm throwing, but I can carve away just as my dad did earlier. He carved away a lot of the bottom, and it just elevates that curve shape. But also, as I'm going to throw a cylinder to start with, and then I'm going to collar the top in, and that just kind of holds the whole form in, and I'll stretch out the belly afterwards. Here. So here's my first lift. Squeeze the wall and get a couple of lifts that way. You see, I get the wall tapered all the way in, right from the get-go, and just keep the entrance of the pot leaning in, so like it's a volcano shape. And as you're getting the height, I tend to collar it in a lot, because the moment clay stretches out, it's very hard to compress it back in. In the same way, skin, when it's overstretched, it's done. So, I mean, as you get more efficient at throwing, the aim is to take the clay to the final destination in the most efficient ways. So the more you stretch the clay about, getting it to do acrobatics and stuff, it just loses its strength and it collapses on you. So I'm going to use the knuckle pull here. Just collar it in after every pull. I'll pull it in from the base as well. Just slow down. The longer the stretch, the more clay you pull up in one go, I find. Squeeze and hold the clay at the bottom. You see that indent there? You just hold the knuckle in at the base for a little bit until I get this indent, and that helps me to know how much clay I'm lifting up. You don't want to do too much in one go, bit by bit is good.
Are you using a sponge to give you moisture?
Yeah, sometimes I just hook the sponge around my knuckle, especially when I'm doing plates and stuff. I just have a big sponge under my fist and keep pulling it out like that. Saves you letting go 10 times a minute, to wet it, to keep the pot lubricated. going to straighten it up a little bit and start the shaping. Nice little rib from Mud Tools, have you know? Which I always get the Mud Tools ones. It's nice. It's nice having nice tools still. We make like half of our tools and then we buy the other half. But it is nice to have nice tools. Okay, so I'm going in on the neck here, collaring in the neck. So even if I have to stretch out that later on, I'm going to keep returning to the entrance of the pot. I'll use a kidney in my other hand. Sometimes I'll stretch it out with a kidney on the inside as well. I'll show you what that looks like. He's bought the whole kitchen sink.
That's why I couldn't find it.
I really like these small kidneys, they've got a really nice little curve on them. So I'll use that inside.
You start a little bit way up.
Yeah, I'm just going to do it gradually. And you get rid of the slip on the surface, and that strengthens up the wall as you go, especially if it's very soft like this. Sometimes when you're stretching out it goes wobbly really quickly, but I find that's because you just need to hold your position for a bit longer. Sometimes I'll just push and hold, move up a little bit, push and hold, and then move up a little bit, push and hold. And I look at it and I think, well, where's the widest point of the pot? You know, there's many different types of moon joint, some with a higher shoulder. Like the one upside down actually has quite a high shoulder. The widest part of the pot is higher up, and then sometimes you get the really round ones that are like football. Okay, so think about the curve and how you're going to refine it. I find that if you just collar in the top, it does quite a lot of the work for you, and you can see how much more you need to push out. So with moon jars, some people belly it out a little bit too much and it just keeps collapsing. It tends to fall at 2 points, on the shoulder here and below the curve. So the clay is usually either too thin or it can't support the shape that you're stretching the clay to. But you've got to remember that when you're turning the pot, by removing the base, that will do 40% of the shaping, and the same as when you're collaring the neck in. That's why if you collar it in from early on, it makes it a lot easier to do it later. So we've got to remember, clay's got memory and it does kind of remember where you put it. If you keep it in good condition, keep teeing off the rim like that, keep it nice and thick and healthy, then the clay stays elastic and it stretches. I think that's it. I'll just refine the curve here a little bit maybe. I'm just going to use a rubber kidney on the inside. Maybe I'll see how far I can stretch this. One of two things will happen. It'll probably looks like it will probably fall from the top actually, if I keep stretching this one. If it falls from the top, you've got to hoist it up, hoist the shoulder up like that, and strengthen it up with a kidney, and it will hold at a position. If it's slightly more like that, it will hold rather. You know, as soon as it goes vertical, even if you're doing like the rim to a plate, if you're pulling it out vertical, all you need to do is lift the pot off and put it on the table and it will just collapse. Has anyone found that? Yeah, so it's always good to hold it at slightly, its strongest position slightly at a diagonal like that. I'll remove a bit of clay. I think we're almost done. A lot of my vases, especially if they're bigger than this, I've been making them in parts, similar to how my dad has made them in parts. So I've got a couple of pieces that I did earlier, and you can see how that, for example, would sit on that. Okay. You just need to make sure that the receiving end of the pot is thick enough, and let it dry out leather hard so it doesn't sink. Don't turn it too thin here, because it needs to support, when you put the weight on, it needs to support quite a lot. Sometimes I find, I've done it before, I've turned it a bit too thin, and it looks fine when it goes through the bisque firing, and then when it's got the glaze on, that's when all the mistakes show, because glaze melts and the weight of the glaze just makes the pot sink. So if you've got any thin patches, that's when it all kind of comes through. I'm going to trim this one off and I think it's finished. Should I make it into something else? And then that will be me done. Right, first thing I could do, pull that out a little bit. Right, can I collar it in is the question. It needs to be a little bit more. What, the sound effects? Squashed look. The best. So my clay, because I've stretched out quite far here, so it's struggling to sort of keep itself together, as we can see. I'm going to take off all the soft stuff at the top, like that. And what I've got at the bottom is probably strong enough to make it into a bowl or something. Is you've got to remember, I always have to remind students, this is just mud, to be honest. And, as you're sitting here adding water to it, you're really softening it down. And after 10 minutes of water and manipulation, it's done. Up and out, so I'm just stretching it with my knuckle, gradually stretching it up and out with my knuckle, up and out, up and out. And the speed helps to sort of stretch it out a little bit.
Inside hand below your outside, stretching out.
Inside hand, well they're both, yeah, I'm going to the base on the inside. So the inside hand is slightly above the outside one. Because I've got a narrow base here, I can't really pull it out that far as a bowl. As a bowl, the wider the base, the wider you can pull out the walls. So there's loads of ways to stretch that about. You can use your whole hand and just clasp it. Use your whole hand to stretch out the wall. You can also use a kidney to help you stretch out the wall. Just stretch your fingertips out and support the wall like that. Sometimes I start at the bottom and stretch it out gradually. Sorry, starting at the top and going down and out. Then you can go from the bottom to the top. I suppose with a bowl, the beauty of a bowl is an unbroken curve from rim across to the other rim. I mean, there's many different styles of bowls, but I always look at the inside shape, knowing that I'm going to carve the outside to match it. You can also just use a sponge. I might just belly it out a little bit. It's not coping. If I stretch it out a little bit more at the bottom, hopefully it will support itself. Oh, it's gonna go. There you go. What do people enjoy making most on the wheel then? Is it moon jar? Is it bowls? Yeah, I find people. I suppose so.
I'm enjoying bottles.
Are you? Okay.
Because there's the collaring in and making sure it's not like off at an angle at the top.
Yeah.
Get my head around that.
Yeah, collaring in it's
Collaring in, make
really satisfying if you can really get it in well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy collaring in too actually, yes.
Do you make many bottle forms?
Not really. No. No, I don't. The form itself doesn't excite me, so I don't really make bottle forms, but I make loads of them, just teaching people how to do it. So there's a bowl. The top here is getting a bit flappy. I don't have any leather to strengthen the rim up, but I'm using the flap of my skin just to. Do you know what the chamois leather does on the rim? Yeah, you can consolidate. I use the flap of my skin.
It's like
just
chamois leather.
exactly.
What does the leather do to the rim?
I'm going to push this out and just let it collapse. Can I do that? Just for fun.
I'll start.
Huh?
You should send that to throw down.
I remember when we had to make the teapots. That was probably the funnest thing. What's his name? That comedy guy. Oh, he's so funny. The big guy. Yeah.
The 1 minute teapot.
Yeah. Oh, that was. To be honest, on the whole experience, it is a really stressful experience, and
The time constraints really annoying.
the time constraints. Oh God, yeah, they're real as well. So in the first challenge we had to make was a dinner set, 14-piece dinner set in 4 hours. And mind you, I never even sit down at a wheel for more than like an hour or two because it just gets uncomfortable physically. So you have to sit, it's incredibly stressful. But I would say, I don't think I've ever learned or pushed myself as far. So yeah, it's a bit like doing another degree course really, but a ceramics degree course I found, because I just learnt so much. And I met some amazing characters like Keith and Kate, and all the other guys on the show were all good friends, which is really nice. You know what? I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I am. I made him cry on the first day twice. But they didn't show it on TV. I was the first person. Yeah, it was really weird. They had a funny. I think they didn't want me to do well because because my dad's a potter. But it's no, I shouldn't say that, and I don't mean that. But you know, it's a story. It's an entertainment program. It's an entertainment program. So I appreciate it for what it is, and it was a fantastic experience.
You could be a emotional guy.
Sorry.
You could be an emotional guy. Or it could be like drawing what you're doing, or you see what I mean? Yeah.
Oh yeah, being emotional, nothing wrong with that.
No, man.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Do you remember what you did that made him cry twice?
Did you say kicked him in the shin? I am winning this one. No, he said it was tenacity. He said, "Oh, you're very tenacious." He said, "I think it was when I was doing my jug. I think I won the jug prize when we were decorating these jugs from what's that lady called? Emma Bridgewater." And so I won the jug, and he felt passionate about my jug. Yeah, so Rosa and Ronaldo and Florence, they were on the same one. You watched that, yeah. So Florence, she's my friend. I'll be going to see her soon. We're doing a pottery collection, which is really nice. Florence was on episode 3.
I started rewatching it.
Yeah.
But you can't see series 1 and 2.
I know.
Which is such a...
I know. Is it? Well, I suppose there's just so many new ones coming.
See one then.
It wasn't really a while ago, isn't it? You can't download it. But it was a really a while ago.
Right, that's me done for today, I think. And another one for the bin. Yay. Yeah, when you're throwing, you have to stop when you like the look of it. That's what I always tell people, because, yeah, there's a point where it just has a final stretch and it just holds and looks really good. And that's when it's best to stop and wire it off and take off. Do you want me to show you any more, or is that enough? Because I feel like we don't want to run out over time.
Well, have you ever made hang clay instead of out the wood?
I started off sculpting, to be honest. So when I was a kid, I used to spend a lot of time just making little faces and little figures, and I've still got some of them. But now I throw and combine the techniques together.
Okay.
But, I mean, most of my recent work has been thrown, but I also use sculpture as well. Yeah, I don't think I've got enough time to assemble all the bits that I brought, but
Really good, thank you.
is that okay?